All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan McGuire, Director of Professional Development here at ACCE, and I'm very happy to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. So today we are going to be talking about chamber foundations. Chamber foundations are an important tool that can be used by chamber and community leaders to facilitate and support transformational change for important purposes such as economic development, education, downtown development and revitalization, and much more. So to present our program today, we're delighted to welcome a panel of your peers to talk about their experiences with chamber foundations and their accomplishments. We have Kelly Hall, President and CEO of the Longview Chamber of Commerce, Todd Murphy, President of the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce, and Lori Reinert, Executive Director of the Lehigh Valley Chamber Foundation. So before I hand the program over to our panelists, I do have just a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. Second, after the presentation by each of our panelists, we'll have time for questions, and you can ask those questions using the question function of the webinar. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just type in your question, and I will read the question to our panelists. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or if you have a question that you would like to discuss with one of our panelists individually, please feel free to contact them directly. The contact information for all our panelists will be on the last slide of the presentation, so you can feel free to contact them directly or contact me here at ACCE if I can help you with anything. And third, the webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted on the ACCE website on the ACCE webinar page no later than Monday, December 10th. With the recording of the webinar, I will also post the presentation slides, which you'll be seeing today. So with that, I would like to introduce our panel. We will start with our moderator, Kelly Hall, who's President and CEO of the Longview Chamber of Commerce. Kelly joined the chamber profession in 1986 and has led her chamber in developing numerous major initiatives since she assumed her current position in 2005. The chamber developed and implemented the first chamber non-subscriber occupational health plan in Texas in 2008 and was the third chamber in Texas to form a PAC. In October 2018, it was the third chamber in the country to launch an association health plan. The chamber has been a transformational leader in the community. It funded over 50% of the largest successful bond election campaign in November 2018, formed the Community and Economic Development Foundation she'll present on today, and launched a Career Ready Plus campus certification initiative. And in August 2018, it opened the East Texas Manufacturers Academy. Kelly serves on ACCE's Executive Board and on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Committee of 100, and on the Texas Chamber of Commerce Executive Board as Chairman, and on the Texas Association of Business Board of Directors Executive Board. Kelly's a certified chamber executive, and she's also received the Institute of Organization Management, or IOM, recognition as well. She graduated from the University of Central Oklahoma with a degree in marketing and she has a master's in strategic leadership from LeTourneau University. We'll also hear from Todd Murphy, who is president of the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce and ex officio administrator of its Charitable Foundation and Political Action Committee. Todd became president of the chamber, which represents businesses of the largest parish in the region. And it has, since he's assumed presidents of the chamber, it's taken several notable public policy and legislative positions, grown its membership and high investor revenue by more than 20%, and received a 5-star accreditation from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The chamber was honored as the most outstanding chamber in the state of Louisiana in the large chamber category by the Louisiana Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives in both 2013 and 2015. This year, the LABI awarded the Jefferson Chamber with its Distinguished Economic Development Partner of the Year award. In 2014, Todd received the Champion of Economic Development Award from the Jefferson Economic Development Commission. A recent member of the Board of Directors of GNO, Inc., Todd served on the board of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, in 2017, representing the State Chamber Executive as its president. Prior to becoming president of the Jefferson Chamber, Todd was a banking executive with a community bank and also a regional financial institution. He holds a bachelor's degree from Louisiana State University and is also a graduate of the Graduate School of Banking at LSU. And then finally, we'll hear from Lori Reinert, who is Executive Director of the Lehigh Valley Chamber Foundation. Lori is the Director of the Chamber Foundation Main Street Lehigh Valley Grant Program. She also supports the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber's President and CEO, Tony Iannelli. Lori was responsible for the creation of the Chamber's Nonprofit and Business Partners Council and manages Chamber travel programs and special events. She's been with the Lehigh Valley Chamber for over 10 years after over 14 years in a career with a design company that licensed manufacturing rights for the pet industry. And Lori's hobbies include gardening, travel, and spending time near the water wherever she can. So we are so glad to welcome Kelly, Todd, and Lori to talk about Chamber Foundations. And with that, I am going to turn it over now to Kelly, our moderator.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone on the call. One of the things that I'm looking forward to with today's discussion is outlining 3 foundations that are built totally differently. We all focus on different things. The way we manage our organizations is differently. The outcomes are different. So I think if I were sitting as an attendee today, the takeaways are going to be enormous. The questions will be greater when you leave than when you begin. And I know that each of us are more than willing to invest our time and energy in helping you be successful in developing the type of foundation or tweaking the type of foundation that you have in place. So I'm going to begin by just giving you some background information about our organization as the Chamber before we launched our foundation. So the background of the Longview Chamber, our community is about 83,000. In Texas, that's considered a small to mid-sized community. In our community, I will tell you the culture is they think we're a small town. When I know that when I travel across the country and people say, oh, you have a town of 83,000 and a county of 133,000, that's a pretty good sized community. It is. We're in the top 500 in the population bracket, but just from a cultural mindset, that's not the way we see ourselves. The Longview Chamber, we hover at 1,100 members most years. This year it's actually going to be a little higher than that. We have a chamber budget of about $1.3 million. Our membership dues make up approximately 28% of our budget, and currently we have no contracts with government. We formed our foundation in late 2015. We received the 501c3 designation, and we began building our board out in 2016, because when we formed, we just did the minimum 3 board members so that we could start getting our legs and figure out the direction that we're going. Currently, our foundation does have a memorandum of understanding with the Chamber to provide staff support, and that equals $21,600 a year. And I can assure you they get a lot for their money. So what's the purpose of our foundation? The purpose is to serve as a catalyst to build a thriving community. We have 3 focus areas: workforce development, redevelopment, and community development. And I'd like for you to pause and look at the logo on the top left. These are our 5 pillars of the Chamber: redevelopment, education, advocacy, collaboration, and health. REACH, that's our 5-year strategic plan. So when we launched our foundation, we knew this was going to be a completely separate organization with a separate governing board, separate funding, yet the vision alignment is 100% spot on with where the Chamber is going. The areas that we knew that we were going to need assistance and funding in were going to be education, workforce development, redevelopment, and community development. So that's why we picked those particular 3 focus areas. The next thing that I believe is really important is that this foundation board sees themselves as catalytic leaders. Our board is comprised of CEOs who sit at that 30,000-foot level. And I can tell you that has been probably one of the greatest assets is the human capacity that sits on our board, because there's no upper middle management. We're talking, this is the CEO or owner of some of the largest companies in our area. And these individuals truly understand the importance of dreaming, visioning, and knowing how to take action. One of my personal favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill. He said, "There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour." I can tell you that our foundation board seizes the moment. They're courageous. They are willing to take action. I can also tell you there are consequences to every action and decision that is made, and sometimes it is sweet, and sometimes it is very painful. So as we walk through the presentation, I will be very transparent with you on some of the things that have gone really well and some of the things that have gone really badly. We have three big initiatives. The first one that we took on is the East Texas Advanced Manufacturing Academy. So for several years, the Chamber, we had started going on our inner city trips. We started in 2010, looking at communities, identifying those best practices, identifying where the gaps are in our own community, building a sense of awareness of what do we need to do next. Education, workforce, of course, is at top of mind for all of us. So this one quickly rose to the top. We looked at incubators, startups, next generation facilities. We did 2 reports with the university. First one was education versus income, to understand that what the earning potential was in our market, where are we, what type of skill sets are needed. That launched the second report that we released, which was work skill needs, not for today, but what are the work skill needs in 5 years and 10 years. So anything that we decided to move forward with, yes, we're going to address skill needs for today, but that was not our priority. Our priority was looking at the future. So we did that. And we convened the area schools, we convened higher ed, we convened government and our economic development groups. We layered in an industrial council and began fleshing out curriculum. To be honest, this was the easy part. Chambers, we are great at convening people and in championing, initiatives. But the foundation was a new animal. What we didn't understand was having that organizational structure, those policies in place, is so critical. Because when you're dealing with that 30,000 foot level CEO mindset, they just expect all of this stuff to be in place. I literally had to have powwows with my chairman of the board and my chair-elect, which were past chamber chairs, and said, guys, this is a new organization. We need our financial policies in place, our communication policies in place. We need all those components, just like if we were walking through the accreditation process or our CCE, there's that body of knowledge, those formal documents that have to be in place. Kelly will get to that. We're get things done type people, and if we're going to get the big mo going, building that momentum, we've got to take on a project that's going to get our community fired up, and we believe that's going to be our manufacturing academy, because we know that's an area that we need. I said, okay, guys, this is your foundation. So the first year, we did research on facilities. We started raising money. We put the players in place. In August of 2018, we opened the door to the East Texas Manufacturing Academy. And I have a picture in here for you to look at. And this is one that the kids did for me over at the school, which is not far from our office. And I want you to notice all the cutesy stuff they added at the top, just because we were just opening our doors and they're so proud of their new home. But we opened the doors to the manufacturing. this facility. We have 38 students this semester. We'll have more next semester. We're on track for 80 next fall. And in 3 years, we'll be up to 160 students in our facility in a 2-year program, which is all dual credited with certifications tied to it. Let me tell you what hasn't happened yet. We've raised over $1.3 million so far for this to operate and get this facility going. We still need to develop and solidify the relationships between 5 school districts in our city limits that touch our city limits. We still need to solidify the agreements with higher ed. And we need an exit strategy because it's not appropriate for the foundation to run this facility. We need an entity who's going to be the who, and how does that partnership look, and what is our exit strategy going to be? So while this last couple of years have been very exciting, I can honestly tell you, I discovered 2 weeks ago, we wrote a grant to the foundation. We got told we were awarded. What I didn't know is one of my board members went to the school, reworked the grant, and resubmitted it because she knew the CEO of this foundation in Texas. And the grant went to the school district, not to the academy. And that grant was written for administration to operate the academy, which we have a line of credit paying for right now. So while we've raised $1.3 million in pledges and cash, we still had to get a line of credit to open the doors and take care of this. And our board members, because we don't have those org docs and those pieces that we take for granted oftentimes in our chamber, this has been a different beast. And they don't have a, quote, paid staff. You heard me mention at the beginning, we have an MOU with the foundation to provide staff. So it's been a fun process. It's been a painful process. The next project that we're working on is an amphitheater. That was another area, a gap that we have in our community, is that entertainment feature. So for the last year and a half, we have options on nearly 80 acres of continuous property. We formed a founding fathers group, which has been raising money. They've raised a couple of $100,000 so far, and all of that money is doing due diligence. So we have our feasibility study. We've got our land optioned and in escrow. We're continuing to do that. Right now, we're getting ready to we've got a proposal for about another $133,000 worth of environmental studies, surveys, all kinds of things to be done with this property before we actually start signing contracts to purchase land. And then my question is going to be, we don't have our exit strategy for our academy. I don't want to squash this exciting momentum that was building in our community, but I don't want to repeat the pain points that we've lived growing up with the academy and learning how to leverage our foundation to advance these strategic initiatives. That's my biggest words of caution, guys. Foundations can be powerful and you do magnificent things. But as chamber execs, we know to keep the ducks in a row, and we know what's going to cost us our job is when that stops happening, and that has been my biggest challenge. So the amphitheater is on track. We have presentations from 2 companies that want a contract with us to run the amphitheater, pay us to do that. We've got a business plan for the amphitheater, but again, it's just making sure those ducks are in a row. Our last initiative, because we identified 3 projects. This is our social impact project. Over the last 13, almost 14 years, I have built such wonderful relationships with community leaders, and they believe in our organization. They believe in me and the confidence and the capabilities I bring to the table. And I have one of my board members has a charity, has about 17 and a half acres. You see the land that's on the screen before you. And this was about a year ago, and he says, Kelly, I want to give you our charity from our corporation. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with over 600 employees in Texas and in the oil and gas business. And he said, I want to give everything to you. Now, it'd be really easy to say, oh, yes, but that's not the right answer. And I said, Reuben, while I would love to take the 17 and a half acres and the monies and then the commitment to fund whatever for the future, that's not the purpose of the foundation, and you know that. And the purpose is to be a conduit, a convener, a champion, the one who steps out and makes things happen. I said, now what I am willing to do is to work with you and identify the right partner to let your vision and your dream, because this is in the urban center of our town in a historically impoverished area, and it's an area that we have a lot of concerns about for redevelopment. Well, the good news is we have a partner who built a brand new facility across the street that works in the human services field. And so I've been working with their CEO out of Dallas and their executive suite for over a year now. And we have, you can see the map to the right. This is an example of what we're looking at doing to where we can create a urban area that provides social services for a very underutilized area of our community and an area where they want to grow their services in. And so what we are doing is leveraging these relationships, and that's been fun and very slow. And just in the last 2 weeks, their facilities team came in to look at this property. So where do I want to end this conversation with? Our foundation is a champion that brings collaborators together, that's courageous, and that's willing to take action. We're the convener of parties to do the right thing at the right time for our community. But I will want to remind you, I spent 2 hours with our accountant this morning and my CFO, and we walked through the challenges that we're having as we're truing up the end of the year on identifying what assets we're going to recognize. I mentioned earlier, we still don't have the shared services agreements in place. We've got to develop and solidify an exit strategy. We've got to recognize those donors, because in cash this year, the foundation has generated about $1.5 million for the academy, and then the money's raised for the amphitheater. Somebody's got to do that work. And you also heard me say that MOU is roughly $22,000. So we've got some gaps, we've got some work, and it's just going to keep getting better and better, but you've got to be all in if you're going to do this. Looking forward to your questions, guys. So I'm going to turn it over now to our next presenter.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that update. And this is Todd Murphy with the Jefferson Chamber Foundation. I'm going to go through just a few minutes of my presentation because, quite frankly, I think Lori, who's following me, is more interesting. But I'll start with giving you a little bit of background on our chamber. We have been around for 21 years now, and we represent the suburban area of the New Orleans region. And we have a 7-person staff. We have about 900 members, a $1.2 million budget, and we're funded by membership investments and golf tournaments and something kind of unique to our area called crawfish boils, all sorts of fun things like that. So in 2006, we started our Jefferson Chamber Foundation right after Hurricane Katrina. And originally, we needed a 501c3 nonprofit to seek out grants for workforce development and to help businesses get back up and running. We were doing a lot of work with the Small Business Administration, and with the help of the SBA and FEMA and some others, we actually started a series of seminars and sessions called Jumpstart Jefferson. And it was just an idea we had to bring businesses back together to find out how they could get small business loans, how they could get grants, assistance, workforce. It was a very trying time. And so anyway, that was the origin of why we started in 2006. Our mission is very simple. I mean, over time, I guess we evolved into more beautification, education, workforce development. We've addressed a lot of quality of life issues throughout our parish, and I'll hit on a couple of those in just a minute. And in 2007, late 2007, we started a charter school for at-risk youth. And this was something that was not, it was really a void. And so it wasn't being addressed by the local school system. It wasn't being addressed by the local parish or county government. And so we got together and looked at some other areas that were doing the same thing. And basically the need was we had students that were ages 18 to 22. They were too old to go back into mainstream high school, yet the only resource they had available was to go for a GED. So we established this school where they could go in, get tested to find out what level they're on for English, math, etc., and then work at their own pace to achieve a high school diploma. And so after a few years, after giving birth to this school, so to speak, we flipped it onto its own board. And today, they have 3 different campuses across the New Orleans region. I think they're servicing about probably 140 or 150 students right now. And when these kids graduate and get their high school diploma, they are then assisted with getting into community or trade college or university or to get a job. So that's a little bit about our mission. Board of directors. So here at our chamber, we run 3 different organizations. We have our chamber, we have our foundation, and we also have a political action committee. Each one of those boards is a separate board, a separate bank account, separate bylaws, but all with the same mission and all under the thumb of the chamber, so to speak. So, and what I mean by that is that your chamber board should have the ability to appoint the majority of your board members. You never want to lose control and have it kind of go rogue. And it is a 501c3 corporation, so that's real easy to do, to set up that 501c3. Any lawyer that you have on your chamber board can do that for you in a matter of a couple of days. It's really not a difficult task. So funding, our chamber doesn't take any government funds, but when we look at funding for the foundation, certainly we look at other nonprofit foundations for grants, and we look at individual donors for donations. Our community does something where they do a give. It's called Give NOLA, as in New Orleans, Louisiana. Give NOLA Day, and we collect thousands of dollars just off that one day of people that want to contribute to our chamber foundation. But we also do a lot of cooperative endeavor agreements. So while we don't receive direct money from the government, we do a lot of cooperative endeavor agreements, which allows the local governments to partner with us on certain projects without having to put these out for bid. And I'll go ahead and show you just one example here on the next slide. So one of the disadvantages of living below sea level is we have open canals. And so this was a project we created. There's actually 5 fountains. There's landscaping. It was about a $270,000 project at one of the busiest intersections in our parish or county, if not the state. And so if the parish, for example, decides that they want to do this landscaping project or fountain project, everything has to go out for low bid. And so in this case, we're able to jump in, raise some money, have some money that's coming in from the local government entity, but we were able to buy these fountains for probably a third of what the government would have purchased them for. And then these fountains, of course, change out colors, and the government employees come behind and do all the maintenance. The next slide is very similar. So we did, on the left side, you'll see these murals. We did 17 of these murals in a very blighted area. If the government goes out for bid, it's low bid, and you don't know what kind of paint job you're going to get. So we did a partnership with New Orleans Arts Council and with the local government to make sure that we had the right type of murals that were being painted. And of course, we managed the money. What we found out was that artists don't know a whole lot about managing money. We didn't know anything about art, so it was a great partnership. And then the murals on the right were actually done by high school students. And so we've got a project there that we're working with a local utility company. On the other side of that fence is a utility yard, and we decided to decorate their protective fence a little bit. So there's a lot of initiatives you can do that hit to beautification and quality of life that you can do with the foundation because it's a nonprofit. So just looking towards the future, I think our future goal is we're talking about moving to a community foundation. just because we don't have one of those here in our local community. And we think that by broadening that name from chamber to community, that we can do more civic leadership projects, and have more of a chance for community funding, designated gifts through wills, trust, et cetera. So we're kind of moving in that direction, or at least exploring that. Very well may stay where we are, but that's something that we're looking at right now. And then finally, I was asked to touch on some of the lessons that we've learned, and I'll hit on those. The strength and the substance of all of your organizations, whether it's a chamber, a political action committee, or your foundation, is in your bylaws. And I mentioned before that you want to make sure that your chamber board or executive committee has the authority to appoint a majority to your foundation. We had a lesson learned a few years ago. Our political action committee was literally hijacked by some folks that just had other agendas, and they changed the bylaws over time. And you just don't want that to happen with your organization. You want it to stay. You want to have a separate organization, separate 501c3 number and board, yet you want it to accomplish the same mission. In our case, it's improving the business climate and the quality of life throughout our parish and our region. So really put a lot of time into those bylaws. And Kelly mentioned policies earlier, and kind of goes hand in glove. So that's kind of where we are. We've had some great success over the years. We've done some great projects, and it's really a great way to fulfill your chamber's mission through a nonprofit organization. So with that, as I said, I think Lori's presentation is more exciting. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori, and she's going to run through her presentation. Thank you.
Well, thanks, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to explain a little bit about how our foundation was formed. The first slide shows where we're located on the map. Because we are a regional chamber, we're about an hour and a half from New York City and an hour and a half from Philadelphia in eastern Pennsylvania. We are one of the top 10 largest chambers in the United States with over 5,000 members. So we have a very large footprint, tons of members, 15 offices, 30 staff. And like I said, we have a big footprint, and it requires a lot of coordination, cooperation. The next slide shows you our local footprint. We have a lot of small towns that make up our footprint, and we are talking with the folks up in the green area now. We're also sharing staff and resources up there. So I think some of the smaller chambers struggle to stay afloat in these times. So I think that because we are large, we have a good infrastructure, staff, et cetera, and other resources. I think a lot of the smaller chambers have reached out to us, and they all fall under our umbrella. So on the next slide, you can see a photo from our annual meeting. So with over 5,000 members and all of these mergers, now what? So here we are, we're big, we're wonderful, everyone wants to be part of us, a lot of business is happening, legislators talk to us about opinions on what the business climate is. So our volunteer board said, okay, we're big, but now what should we do? So the answer to that is we should focus on community development so that we can help to revitalize some of these smaller towns. So in 1985, we did have a foundation. It was a 501c3, and you can see that we're located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is the Christmas city. And they had a group of volunteers called the Citizens Christmas City Committee, and they raised funds for holiday decorations. So as we've partnered with some of these other smaller communities, we've opened up our grants to community development projects, beautification projects on all of our main streets. So instead of us choosing the projects, those projects apply to us for funding. The next slide is just a photo of some of the holiday decorations that we helped with last year in Bethlehem, and then some of the projects that we fund in other communities our lighting, seating, banners, signs, open flags, murals, landscaping, farmers market. So instead of focusing on all of our resources on one project, these communities apply to us annually. We also have a separate board of directors that oversees the day. I do the day-to-day, but they really look at all of the applications, go through them, grade them. We make sure that they're geographically diverse, that the money is distributed throughout the Lehigh Valley. And it's really neat to see some of the unique needs of these communities. They're really volunteer-driven, grassroots, collaborative. So it can be, in Hellertown, maybe there's an old fountain that they want to restore, and maybe in Easton they do a mural, and somewhere else they're going to do a farmer's market so that folks in their area have access to fresh vegetables. So it's really neat to see all of the different project applications that come to us. And it's really fulfilling. It's not a lot of money for each project, so we do spread it around as much as we can. But how it works is, like I said, annually they apply to us for grants, and we match the money that they've already raised up to 50%. So they can apply to up to $2,000 per project. And then, usually we get, maybe 40, 50 applications, and usually we can fund 20 or 30 of the project. So it's really difficult when we have to pick and choose. Sometimes we, go back to the volunteers to have them prioritize some of the projects. Some of the locations have more than one project that they want to do. But it's really neat to see the cooperation from the neighbors, from the businesses in the area, and then the results of that are really huge. Even though it's a small dollar amount, we're seeing a huge impact, 20 times the money. So over the last 11 years, we've donated over $400,000. That's cash that we've put in to over 250 projects, and we've leveraged over $8 million. So that's me on the right in the gray dress. It was raining that day, so don't mind my hair. But we take the cardboard check out there, and it's like we're giving them millions of dollars. And it's just really nice to see the volunteers that came up with the projects. They're out there every day. Some of them, are weeding the gardens that have been planted, taking care of planters, making sure that the alleyway string lighting is still there, and collaborating with schools on murals like Todd was talking about. We do a lot of collaboration with some of our arts departments throughout the region. We also cooperate with the government agencies. So small grants, but huge impact. The next slide talks about how we fund all of these projects. So we don't get any government money. We have very low membership revenue. A lot of our revenue comes from events. And one of the ways that we fund our foundation is through our Black Tie Gala. So every other year, our foundation is the beneficiary of our Black Tie Gala. It's called Snowball, and the silent option is the funding mechanism, and our board is responsible for bringing in the items, et cetera, et cetera. Every other year, another nonprofit organization is chosen, so we really help the community, but then also help ourselves. The next slide is just a photo from last year's gala. Tony Iannelli and his wife Wendy are there, and I support him in all things chamber, but manage our foundation. I'm the only paid staff person that helps with our foundation. And then we do have a car lease, which really helps with the funding. And then next slide, at the end of the year, after the projects are chosen, we have a grant reception. So we invite all of the volunteers that did all of the applications and worked on all of those projects. We bring them together and we announce publicly the projects that we're funding each year. So it's a great way for them to be in the same room, to celebrate what they've been doing, and also to share ideas and collaborate. So we just started doing that about 3 years ago. I've been working on...
Need to
wrap it up. All right, I'm getting the hook. one more slide. It just talks about last year we put in $40,000 and got back $1.2 million. So the takeaway is that there needs to be collaboration. It needs to be volunteer driven. And I'm happy to share our story. And if you all have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Lori and Todd and Kelly, for that presentation. And Lori, I don't know what you were hearing there, but I wasn't saying to wrap up. So, but appreciate all of your. I don't know what that feedback was, but
sure.
Go to webinar. Sometimes weird things happen. So anyway,
that's okay. It was
now is the time. Good. Now is the time for questions. And what I'm going to do is I will read. I see I'm hearing some.
ISIL. like ES.
I'm hearing some feedback there, so I will try to fix that. But anyway, let's begin questions. For all three presenters, to be a member of your foundation, you need to be a member of your chamber.
I can answer that. This is Lori. Our chamber is a membership organization. Our 501c3 is not a membership organization, so we don't have any members. We are just a community development mechanism. We don't focus on education, workforce, or some of the other social projects that the others had talked about. We just focus on development in our communities, beautification projects, and there is no membership.
Susan, this is Kelly. I'm similar to that because it is a separate organization with a separate board and governing policy. We do not require membership. Now, I will tell you that we have 10 foundation board members, and each came to the table with $10,000 of seed money for the foundation. So while they're not maybe I only have 2 that are not chamber members because one is retired Price Waterhouse exec. The other is a prior CFO of Baylor University and past CEO of Buckner International. So those were not, he retired and came back home, but he came to the table with the seed money. So there is an investment level expectation.
Todd, do you have anything to add?
No, not at all. Again, just that it's not a membership-based organization. So.
Okay. Another question. All three presenters report that they receive no government funding. Is there a preference to avoid government funding? Are there concerns with strings attached? Kelly, you have any thoughts on that, or anyone else?
The foundation, because we're focusing on the types of projects that we are, while we have not received money from the government, we did grant our largest urban school district dollars to operate the academy. So we have a verbal agreement with them, but not a written agreement at this time. So we have not received. I could see us actually contracting with government on the amphitheater for in-kind things. We've already been told by the county they'll help us build roads, they'll help us get infrastructure, and our city has said the same thing. So it will be on project-to-project basis, but the foundation is separate from the chamber. I don't see the strings the same way as I would see them with the chamber. It's a good question, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is Lori. I think that a lot of government, not a lot of government, let me start over. I think that our smaller municipalities, our geographic chambers have representatives from the local government on their boards. Even though we are a big chamber, we have a big footprint and a large board. All of those little chambers still operate independently. They have their own initiatives and their own volunteer boards. So I think that while we don't receive funding, we do have a lot of cooperation with them. We need them to be able to approve some of the projects that are happening in their towns, especially with signage and lighting. So zoning often comes into the picture. So it's great to have those relationships on those boards so that we can have that cooperation that needs to happen.
Okay. There's a question for Longview. Is the Health Insurance Association part of the foundation or the chamber?
The chamber. Our health initiative is totally separate.
Okay. And then another question for you, Kelly. How does the Chamber Foundation get its funding?
It's been totally through word of mouth donations. I mean, we have different groups. So like on the Academy, we have a funding group that went out and identified key stakeholders that would benefit, and we made sure they understood that this was separate from their chamber giving and investment. And because it's meeting a specific industry need, the asks have been anywhere from 50, the lowest give has been 25,000. The average give is 50,000 with as high as 100,000 on multi-year agreements. So, companies are stepping up to the table because this is something that they need. On the amphitheater, those asks, the founding fathers, that's a different ask. That's coming from the individuals who have the deep pockets, who believe in advancing the future of Longview and building that legacy gift. So it's a different group of individuals. We're not going to the same pot as we often say, we go back to the same people. This giving has been totally different. So the 1.1 that's been generated, 1.2 that's been generated for the Academy is predominantly industry driven. The amphitheater is individual charitable, they're looking at it as a true charitable gift. And then when we start working on the other social impact project, we will assist the agency in fundraising to make that happen. So it's different types of fundraising, and we have not hired a company. This has all been in-house.
Okay. For Todd, can you say more about the cooperative endeavor agreements? Does control stay with the foundation, or does the government entity providing funds take over some authority?
No. So the cooperative endeavor agreement, basically what you do there is you totally spell out in the agreement what the expectation is to fulfill the project or the funding. And then what we do is we invoice in increments as we're completing the job. And but there's very, very little strings attached there. I mean, obviously they want to make sure that if you're doing a landscaping or a beautification project that it's actually getting done. And in our case, whichever respective councilman it is usually on top of it, because it's typically coming out of those district funds, if you will. So no, after that, it's really just up to you to complete the project, make sure that all the deliverables that are in the agreement are actually completed. And but we've had no interference at all from the government. If anything, it's nothing but praise, because we're able to get things done quickly and in a lot of times in a less expensive way.
Okay. So this could be for anyone. Maybe we'll start with Kelly, and it's a big general question, but I think it's a great one. If you were starting from scratch, what would be your approach from a mission, vision, governance, and policy docs? What would be step 1, 2, and 3?
So putting the foundation together was super easy. We had it approved in less than 60 days. The bylaws, we did a great job on the organizational structure side of it. The side that took me, that I did not pay attention to, and I'm paying the consequence for, is I wish I would have already put together the communication policies, the technology policy, and the social media policy, the financial policies. I wish that I had brought those documents over at the first board meeting and not waited for the foundation board to guide where their priorities were in that regard. I would have built the manual, had them ready to approve day one, then did my board orientation. Instead, we did the board orientation, the org was put together. They had the dream, the vision, and the action steps. That was the easy part because we have been doing homework for that for years. I dropped the ball and knew better, so now I'm picking up the pieces to put the policies in place. And they don't want to deal with that. I mean, it's a different type of board than a chamber board, so it's been different. It's on me. Good question.
Todd, do you have any thoughts on sort of starting first steps, how you get started?
Yeah, I would agree.
Great thing you want to do. What do you do?
Yes, I would say
Go
that
ahead.
there's some tactical things like the ones that were just mentioned that need to be done, but I would also spend time. I mean, kind of what we did, and of course we were in a crisis mode. But once we got out of the fog of the hurricane, and the reason we started the foundation is that then we kind of stepped back and we started having meetings with some of the stakeholders around our community and saying, what do you think is missing? What do you think? Where is there a void? And it was amazing the ideas that came out of that. That's really how that school that I mentioned came about. And they said, I work with the Boys and Girls Club, and this person said, we have a void in getting kids that are too old to go back to traditional schools to get them high school diplomas and not just a GED. Is there a way the foundation could assist with this? And so, of course, the more you have those conversations and you start kind of building that interest, then your follow-up question is, if we were to do something like this, how much would you be willing to contribute to this type of cause? And could you help us get funding from others? Are there other sources available? And so I think just communicating with your stakeholders to figure out where the need is. And one thing that I'll tell you that people will say, especially in your beginning stages, they'll tell you this is going to compete with your chamber. When you start asking people to donate to your foundation, they're just going to take it from your chamber. Totally false. It's a totally separate bucket of money. It's charitable. It's charitable money. It's 100% tax deductible. It comes out of a different budget, a different lifestyle, a different mission, either for an individual or a corporation. So I would spend some time just in communicating with your chamber stakeholders to figure out what is the need, and then from there you evolve into your vision of your foundation.
I'd like to build on that. That was a concern of some of the chamber board members, because we do a total resource campaign, and this then here we are doing the foundation, and it's what I had to back up and do is explain and bring someone in alongside of me that their companies have that type of giving, and they have what's called above the line and below the line giving. So their above the line is their general business expense of what it's going to take to operate their core business. That's how they fund the chamber investments that they make. And then the below the line is their charitable bucket. And so they look, and we look, before we go and have these conversations, where are their corporate pillars at? Where are they giving? What do they believe in? And then we have the discussion of what we're doing, whether it's the amphitheater, the social project, or the academy. And they're writing checks. And to be really honest, this was our best total resource year campaign that we've ever had. And I truly believe it's because we have the foundation and we're doing that work as well. Our customers believe in the way we're moving our community forward, and they see we're delivering on two different levels now. I see it as a compliment.
And this is Lori. I would totally agree with that. I think that the chamber receives marketing dollars from a lot of our member businesses. Most of them are small businesses. We have very few Fortune 500s in the area. And then the charitable giving, I think, is an easier ask, especially now that we have the track record of over 10 years. People can see the outcomes and they can see exactly where that money goes. It goes right back to their community. So that's an easier thing to ask for than you would think. I think people are very generous when they know that it's coming right back to where they live and work.
Okay, and I'll just add on in terms of steps. On the next slide, I'm going to have some links may not have time to click on the links in the webinar, but I will post them with the recordings to some of our ACC information pages. So we do have sample, bylaws and other documents and just information there that you can start to look at if you are interested in starting a foundation. It's one of the sources of information. You can also contact our information staff at askacce.org. Or one of our panelists. So if you're inspired by what you're hearing today and you want to explore further and you want to get into the nitty-gritty, one place you can start is our information page, and I'll send you those links. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. Another question is this: have any of you worked with a foundation that was created for a specific purpose, such as business education, but have moved to a larger, broader scope, such as workforce development or other impactful community issues? This person is wondering about the process to change the foundation purpose.
I have not.
This is Lori. I've not either. I think that our success is in that we focus on just one thing, which is community development. And we did hire a consulting agency to come in about 10 years ago to do fundraising for us, and it just didn't work. It's really still the relationship-driven success that we're seeing here.
I have not either. When we wrote the articles of incorporation, and we made the description broad enough that it covered education, workforce, leadership development, community development, redevelopment, and economic development. So we were covered because we knew during our inner city trip exploration, those were all areas that we were touching on consistently. So it was strategic that we kept it very broad so that we were not faced with that situation.
Okay. Are any of the foundations doing research for the business community, such as feasibility studies, things like that?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
No.
We did work with with another organization that really spearheaded that, and we helped to fund it. We did initiate it, but they came to us asking to help fund that initiative.
And we have a separate economic development and tourism organization here in the Lehigh Valley. So our chamber is just the chamber. We don't do economic development or tourism.
Okay. Well, we have a few more questions, but no worries. If I didn't get to your question, I will reach out to you and get you the information or contacts that you need. So we're just about out of time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let me just go to the next slide here. This is the slide I was mentioning before. I won't have time to click on the links, but if you click on either of these Chamber Foundations information or Chamber Foundation samples, you will see ACCE's information page on foundations, and there may be some other useful information there that you can get to answer some of your questions or get started or get more information. And here are our panelists, their contact information. Please, if you have individual questions or would like to follow up with any of them individually about their particular foundations and how they work and their mission and so on, please don't hesitate to contact Kelly or Todd or Lori. And also don't hesitate to contact me. I'm Susan McGuire, McGuire, SMCGUIRE at acce.org, if I can be of assistance either. So thank you all panelists. I really appreciate your time and your presentation. Thank you to everyone for your interest and participation in the webinar today. We have one final ACC webinar of our program year, or the calendar year, I should say, next Thursday, December 13th, when we are going to be talking about the role of chambers in workplace wellness. So I think that's going to be a really interesting webinar. To participate, you'll need to sign up just as you did for today's webinar, and we hope you can join us then. Oh, and one final reminder, this webinar today, along with the slides and other links, will be posted on our webinar page by Monday, December 10th. You can find that by clicking on the ACCE website, www.acce.org, clicking on Professional Development, hovering over ACC University Online, and clicking Webinars, and it should be there by Monday. So thank you again to all panelists and to everyone. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon and rest of the week, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have fun. Bye-bye.